This way you get a lot more customized, a lot more personal, and a lot better show to have an impact on people. The more you make it about you, the more people will relate to you and actually hear the message. People will line up for a 4-hour Star Wars movie, or maybe not right now, but they used to, but they won't watch a 20-second commercial. Guys, Luis, Brothers of Color, is part of the Movement Makers program, and part of that we're doing this IG Live together. So I know the account's pretty new, man. So tell me what you're up to and how I can help.
I have a background as an IT engineer, and basically it's just a podcast called Brothers of Color, where it's just having conversations, to let brothers out there know, and I'll elaborate. So when I say brothers, I mean that collectively, like all walks of life, although the focus will be on, men of color, right? And so it'll be a podcast, but I want to like double dip and use it on YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that way people can see, and relate to someone that maybe speaks to them. And I'll have a website as well. That way folks, I like to cover maybe people who can't hear but can see, right? So on the website, there'll be like a text version where people can read as well. But yeah, so it's basically just to combat this negative thinking that, men have, that, they can't be someone or rather something special or more just because of like their background, where they come from, or skin color. And these conversations will start off with folks that I've known in my life, right? So the first one is a rapper, but then there's like entrepreneurs, executive director from a nonprofit, local business owner, so on and so forth. So it's just having these conversations where, hopefully they can relate and just combat that mindset. Oh, I can't be this because of this, that, and the other. So I hope that like young men will be able to like connect and find role models. And then I don't like using the term older. I like using seasoned, right? So seasoned men who think they're like, I'm a certain age, I can't pursue dreams, that can be as well. Because my guests will come from like all walks of life, like all age groups, all professions, all kinds of backgrounds.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting. So what inside that can I give some value or perspective on?
Yeah, that's good, because honestly, the amount of work and content you put out, like you kind of pretty much answer a lot of questions. I guess I would say one thing to kind of touch on a little bit is, I have my idea of like what I would want the schedule to look like, right? But since I'm doing YouTube as well, that's different, right? And ideally, at the minimum, for most cases, is like once a week or something like that. So what I was originally going to do is I would record, these conversations, and it'll be like a 2-part, right? So like episode 1 would be like a part 1 of episode 1, or part 2 of episode 1. And I was going to do like the 1st and the 15th. But if I'm doing YouTube and I kind of want to stick with the consistency, it's a thing where like, do I still stick to that like every 2 weeks, or try to get 2 episodes in a month, so that way I have a part for every week? I just wanted to get your thoughts.
For YouTube, long form content is great. So I'm not a big fan of the part 1, part 2 for YouTube. I love that you're thinking YouTube, because people will, the conversations you're having, in a year or 2 years, 5 years, still be valuable to people. So at any point in somebody's journey, if they discover you, if they discover you in 2026 on YouTube, they have all this other content they can go back and continue to watch and get value from, where that won't happen on other platforms. A little bit on podcasts, but most people don't go back too deep into the archive on podcasts. They'll listen to episode 1 and they'll cherry pick, but for the most part, they don't go back, where YouTube videos that are 5 years old will still be getting recommended to you. So long form really works. How long are we talking about for your videos? Like if you were to combine part 1 and part 2, how long is that?
That's a good question. I want to say maybe about an hour. It could be a little longer, honestly. The only reason why I kind of went with the 2-part, and I'm totally with you, I wasn't too fond of it, is I was trying to keep it, at least the audio side, kind of like bite size, like 30 minutes max. So that way it could be like a commuting thing for some folks. But I'm not opposed to just not doing a 2-part thing, just so that way everything just kind of aligns.
I love it. I would go 1 hour. If you talk longer, go longer. Long is crushing right now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And even listening to the Joe Rogan stuff of like 2 hour, 3 hour sometimes with his conversations, that's really the model that's working super well. If it's good, people will listen. If it's crap, people are out no matter how long. If it's
yeah.
40 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, if it's no good, right? But people will line up for a 4 hour Star Wars movie, or maybe not right now, but they used to. Uh, but they won't watch a 20-second commercial, you know? So if it's good, that should be the focus, but long definitely works. So if you could do 1 hour plus and just see how far it goes, don't be forced like, oh, we still have 10 minutes left and I got nothing to talk about. So, right. Like the conversations have a flow to them. And so when the flow is starting to wrap up, then you can wrap up the conversation. But knowing that you want to go long, I think is fantastic. Think about what is preventing you from doing 1 hour every week.
I'll let you know about me. So I have a certain level of persistence, right? And this kind of ties into me being an IT engineer and also not so much where like I don't believe in like you can't. It's like how can I? So even if there was something that was preventing me, I would try to figure out a way to overcome that. So it's not preventing me because what I'm trying to do vastly exceeds whatever might be in the way. So yeah, no,
So then
it's
that's
doable.
what I would do. 1 hour every week. When you line up there, I mean, the good news is you're targeting how many millions of people. Like to find a brother who has some color and turn that into, I mean, there's tons, millions of
Yeah,
people. You're not targeting like this little tiny niche of hard to find people. And so yeah, I would make it a weekly 1 hour show. If the production is part of the thing that makes it difficult to organize, you can even do it on IG Live. A bunch of people are doing their podcast live on Instagram, and then they take the video and the audio and turn it into a video show for YouTube and an audio for the regular podcast. And it's easy for people to join. So that's what I would start to plan around. Like, how do I get a weekly show out? And you can always improve the quality, but not at the expense of you not releasing content. So once
yeah,
you set it, like every week it's coming out, then every week, like if you've been watching my content, every day something's coming out, man. I haven't missed a day in, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And I've gone through a broken neck, and I've gone through sickness, and I've gone through people passing in my family. I've gone through all of it. And like content is still going up. So that like, how do you fit in? And it's not that much work. Like, how do you fit an hour into your weekly calendar? Because obviously you got something else going on while you're building this thing up. So how do we build an hour into our calendar that fits? Whether maybe it's a Saturday morning, maybe it's a Sunday afternoon, maybe it's Friday after work, maybe, whatever fits your schedule, that every week a new episode's coming up.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, it's just so the like conversations will happen over like some type of video conferencing, but it would be recorded and then the audio just gets pushed up to Anchor. That's what I would use for the podcasting, and then YouTube for the video. And yeah, and I do everything myself. It's totally doable. It's not like a chore. It's a delight actually. So yeah, it's kind of it's making it happen, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why I've always been like very fond of you. You know, it's like that mindset of like just get it done. You know, I'm not trying to like, let's say for video editing, right? Like I don't need to have Adobe or what have you. I just need something that I can access now to get it up and going. And then, like you said, with time, just kind of, level up and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the fact you said that it's a delight means you're on the right path. Because for other people, that's torture. For other people, like even some people watching, you tell them, hey, go make a weekly video and then turn into an interview for your YouTube and for your podcast. And it's like, that's torture, dude. I don't want that. But for you, it's like, that's a delight. It's great. It means you're on the right path. The biggest leveling up for you is not going to be even in the editing. It's going to be in your ability to pull out stories. Like, how good are you at having conversations and pulling out great stories from people? It's creating a safe environment for them to actually be, because you want to tell the things that people are all thinking, but they're not talking about. All the things that they concerned, or their inner demons, or the things, stories they've never shared before. Because you don't want just to have people come on and tell the same story they've told everywhere else. That's not going to be as inspiring. So your ability to be that person, like, why do people go on Oprah and cry? How does Oprah get, not that everyone has to go on your show and cry, but how does Oprah get out, like, create the environment of trust and then pull out these stories that other people can't? So I'd be studying Oprah, I'd be studying Larry King, I'd be studying, like, if it's Joe Rogan or any people who you really love listening to, and saying, how did they get that person to open up like that? That will be a far better use of time than worrying about how to edit and how to do music or graphics or anything else on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the thing is that, right, model success. But I think people get like super caught up in the whole gaining knowledge that they just keep gaining knowledge and don't put that into action. So I have this thing, I believe that knowledge is gathered information, but wisdom is the action, right? So for me is I've already recorded the first episode. That was with a rapper here in Philadelphia. And it was interesting because, for me, I'm just Luis, right? I'm just always being me. And he was like, Luis, I did another podcast. And man, I wish the conversation flowed how it did with you. And that's because I do my homework, and I also do testing, right? So the first one was recorded, and I'll ask like feedback from a few folks. So far, it's been pretty good. And as time goes on, I'll just continue to get better, right? Because again, this is not about me, it's about us, right? So I want to make sure what I'm sharing makes sense because I want to help people, as much as I possibly.
So listen, besides the fact that you knew him, why did you have your rapper buddy as your number one guy who came on? Like, why'd you pick him?
Yeah, for sure. So I think he's very interesting. So he comes from struggle, which I think a lot of folks will be able to relate to. So he's a black man, and he's a rapper here in Philadelphia, and everything, even down to like his name, right? So his name is New God, right? But it's not implying that he thinks or he wants to be God. It's new refers to him, and God refers to like enlighten, getting better, evolution. So there's just like different components why I had him on. I feel that like folks that I'm trying to cater to that think they can't be, let's say in this, I'm just going to make up an example. Like I can't be a rapper because I'm from this neighborhood or I don't know how to do these things. So in the conversation with him, it kind of dives into a little bit of like his life, like what he did, what makes him special, stuff like that. So in the conversation, there's like nuggets there that folks can use to try to pursue, for example, if they want to be a rapper. And also in the conversation, in the episodes, on YouTube, and I'll put in the description because I want people to connect and link up, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I want folks to be able to connect with him and him to connect with folks as well. So these conversations, again, just trying to help people, connect people, and just move us forward, positive conversations too. So like these conversations don't have any type of profanity or anything like that because I want young men to be able to listen to it as well. So.
Cool. I love it. I mean, listen, there's no profanity in my videos either.
I know.
It's actually, that's mostly because I don't swear myself.
Yeah.
I guess how I was raised, I got my parents on the wall behind me here. It's actually worked out to be a good strategy because YouTube was demonetizing or suppressing videos that have excessive swearing in it. But it wasn't a strategy. It's just more like, I don't want to put that out in the world. Now some parents like use my videos for teaching or schools. They use my videos in there and they, thank me for that. But it wasn't a strategy to begin. It was more like, hey, that's not how I want to put content out into the world. What was the biggest lesson that you learned from New God, like you, Luis, learned to make you better?
For me, I'm very selfless. So to me, I'm like doing this, but I'm enjoying it, right? It's not something that it's like a chore or anything like that. Like I've always been a person where since I was very little, when folks get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? The whole thing about giving a title or a role wasn't my thing. I always just wanted to help people, right? So I say I'm not chasing a title, I'm chasing a way of life, and that way of life is freedom, right? Freedom to like help who you want to help, freedom to be who you want to be. So for me, I mean, for me, it was a pleasure just having this conversation with him. Like, I know him personally, but in this interview, I got to know certain things that I probably normally wouldn't have on a regular conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
So even though for me, it was like that, get back to, humanity in some capacity, it was just an enjoyment, honestly, just to everything from, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, was like his name alone, because I'm sure some folks might find his name very interesting. So it was good that he was able to dive into something like that, because, you know, people shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And I know sometimes it happens unintentionally. And if I can kind of help with that, I think that helped. But for me, it was just good, that he's out here, like a bunch of us, right? A lot of folks that been working with on like large scales, right? Where like people should understand that even though you have something going on and you want to do something more or something else, like just go for it, right? 5% is better than 0%, right?
So,
Something
okay,
is
so let
better.
me ask you this. If you had to ask a selfish question to him
Yeah.
for you to forget about the audience. This isn't for the
Yep.
audience and the listener. This is for like Luis as a brother of color to get better. A selfish question. What would that question be to him?
What kept him going? Because I know when people come from struggle, it's pretty difficult to keep going. So like, what's that thing that kind of pushed you? And it was kind of briefly touched upon. It was for him in becoming a rapper. It was his brother. He lost his brother, so that like pushed him to do that even more. Because it was something I believe his brother wanted to be. And just, his brother passed. It definitely pushed him more to like level up.
And so why that question? Like, why is that meaningful to you?
For me, I guess it's just because for me, it's interesting to know maybe what drives other people. Because I come from struggle myself, and you know, it's that's tough, Evan. Like when I literally say I'm selfless. Like I don't know. I think relatability, right? So I come from struggle, and what drove me is not the same thing that drives other people. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna stay here and like sugarcoat or beat around it. Yeah, I don't know. I would say the struggle. The struggle is one thing. That's
So
something I can relate to.
I think honestly, one of the biggest growth areas for you is making it more selfish. And in the selfishness, it's actually more selfless. So that if you make the content about you and what you're going through and why you find this person interesting, it's actually better content than just trying to make for the audience. Everything from how you introduce him, because I'm sure he's got his standard bio that's on his website and whatever. But if you say, hey, I have New God here on this show, and he's got his official bio, but let me tell you why I love him. I love him because XYZ, like your lens is the reason why people will listen, and it creates a much better show and actually serves the audience more because I feel that it's personal and meaningful. So I would encourage you to always ask a question that you really want answered from him. From any guests that you have coming on. It's like, hey, this is what I wonder for you. Like, how do you X? And let me tell you why it's important to me, because I came from this and I struggle with X and I see you doing this. And I like, how do you figure it out? If I'm you, I would ask the question. This is just we haven't met each other before this, so I'm just vibing off of you. I would lean in on the new God. I would say, listen, one of the things I love about you is you changed your identity and you've become this guy who has the audacity to call yourself new God. And one of the things that I struggle with is I struggle with being too humble and too selfless. And I feel like I need a little more bravado and swagger and confidence to do what I'm doing, to serve. What advice could you give me? And then see what he said. And now I don't know if I'm like hitting the mark with that question or it doesn't feel right to you, but just from the conversation, that's where I would go. And hopefully you get some good advice from him. And maybe you add a little something to your name. Maybe it's not just, Luis. Maybe there's a little extra little flavor that gets added in. But in you sharing your story and where you struggle, and this person helping you, everybody who struggles with that same thing now is learning. And it is actually the most selfless thing is to share your story and vulnerability and then be open to receiving coaching and help, as opposed to just tell us about your struggle and tell us where you came from, because they've told that story a million times. This way you get a lot more customized, a lot more personal, and to your goal of being selfless, a lot better show to have an impact on people.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I am.
How does that question land for you?
No, it's good. It's more of the mindset. So like when you first started chatting, I think it was amazing because I understand I'm the host, right? So I'm not only coming from the audience, but I think like the way you put it, I'm going to now be proactively thinking as the host, which is great because I was coming a lot more from the audience, right? Not in the sense of like only giving the audience, but like, you know, something that could benefit the audience. But you kind of, you know, driving that question into like, for me, for myself, right? Like what's something I really want to take like deep dive, something that, you know, that they can help me with is proactively think about. Yeah.
It honestly might be, and this idea is just coming to me, it might be fun to do a round 2 with him, have him be episode 1 and 2. And the theme of the second one is how do we have a little more swagger in the Luis brand? How would you rebrand me? Or how do you have the audacity? Like if I saw somebody called New God, I could never call myself that. Right? How do you do it? And how do I get some of that confidence juice that you're drinking and use it to serve people? Like it's not about my ego. It's to serve. I want to use that to serve people and show people what is possible, what can be done. That'd be a fun episode 1. I don't know if you'd be down for it or if you're down for it, but I'd love to see like episode 1 and 2 to do that.
All right. So I'm down. I'll do that. That'll be episode 2. And I'm doing this intentionally live, so I'm held accountable. So
yeah.
All right.
I love it, dude. And remember that you are your audience. People watch my videos because they want more believe in their life. And so I do the work to synthesize and share and bring, it's all through my lens. Some people like how Evan Carmichael sees the world, and then they watch those videos. Other people think it's the stupidest thing of all time. And great, go find somebody else. It's great. You are your audience. And the things that you're just a little bit ahead of your audience. Your audience is really Luis from like 5 years ago. And everything you've come through and learned and grown. And so whatever you struggled with, you're still struggling with now, just on a different level. If we're talking about calling ourselves New God and like the humbleness versus ego side of things, you're better than you were 5 years ago, but you still struggle with it. And you'll still continue to struggle with it, just on a different level. And so that's where, when you can make it, like making it, I struggled so much with this, dude. Is why I'm giving you the advice, because I'm the same guy. I struggled so much with, well, it's not about me. How many times it's not about me. This is not about me. It's about the audience and sharing the message. And I fought with my agent for 5 years on this thing. Like, I don't need to be famous, Steve. It's not about me. I want to share a message that hits millions of people. And then finally it sunk in. It's like, the more you make it about you, the more people will relate to you and actually hear the message. If you care about the message and reaching people, you have to share your story and vulnerability and what you're worried about and going through, and get the advice to do it. That's when people actually start to connect. So hopefully you can shortcut that, and you don't take 5-6 years like I took, and you can do it right away. But it's actually the most selfless thing to do, is to show up vulnerable, what you're scared of, why you want this person on your show so much, and in you sharing what you're struggling with, and they give you advice, you're actually helping. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even see it that way, becomes the unlock for everybody who's watching the show as well, which is the most selfless thing that you can do.
That's awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm fired up, man. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm not a brother of color, but I can't wait to. I got a little Italian on me. That probably doesn't count, but yeah, dude, I can't wait to see the show. I love it. I love it. Episode 1 and 2.
Yeah.
New God, and then keep going. Once a week, 1 hour, put it up. You're onto something special, dude.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And you got a year Movement Makers too, so we're gonna have a lot of fun inside that program. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Luis. Where's the best place to find you? Is it Brothers of Color? He's got Built to Serve there.
Yeah, Brothers of Color, Instagram and Twitter. They're new, so nothing up yet, but I'll start putting stuff up. But yeah, just Brothers of Color on Instagram, and actually Bros of Color on Twitter, since that's the handle that was available. And then the website will go live on the 1st of next month when I'll start pushing content out.
Cool. I love it. Appreciate you,
All right.
man. Let's get
All right,
going.
appreciate you too. All right.
Okay, much love. Ciao.
Stay awesome.
If you want to see another awesome one-on-one I did with an entrepreneur just like you, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
If you have an idea, act on that idea. When you act on an idea, you'll get more ideas.
That's how you can be more creative. That's how you can build more self-confidence.